My name's Don.
And I'm Peter.
And we are two plebs talking about... California.
This week in the DPRC.
You bet. So, this episode I think is going to be a little bit different than normal.
Yeah?
I don't think we're actually going to break this down into two stories like we normally do, because 90% of what's going on in California right now is really just the election.
We voted!
Yeah. Well, and we voted mostly on stuff that doesn't matter. I mean, there's a couple of like ballot measures and stuff that got worked in there, but generally speaking, we did California's primary, which is retarded.
Right.
Which is to say that we decided in 2010 that if you were running for any public office at all,
right,
there would no longer be separate primaries to determine who goes on the actual ballot. It would just be one big, giant, open primary.
Right.
And whichever two people got the most votes, ta-da.
Right, the jungle primary, I believe they refer to it as.
Sure. Seems dark. Anyway, so...
That's what they call it.
I understand.
In the one article I read.
I know. I have no idea why we do that, but we do. And, look...
well, I think potentially it was to be able to get two Democrats running as opposed to a Democrat and a Republican.
Look, I understand why we made the primary the way we did. I don't understand why we decided to call it the jungle primary, as though that was a good idea.
Right.
So, look, we did. But that is exactly the premise, right? That's how you end up with two Democrat candidates on all kinds of stuff all over this state every single election.
Yep.
Because... well, the big argument is who is more progressive, almost always.
Right.
And that's who gets elected, or the incumbent, because that's also usually who gets elected. Well, interesting things happened in an attempt by the state to get rid of this show. The governor, at bare minimum, is not two Democrats, which is amazing.
Yeah, there's actually a Republican running against a Democrat.
Right. And the votes counted are not the ridiculous Democratic landslide that it always is.
Right.
Effectively. Now, look, the Republicans generally do better in off-year, off-national election kind of elections, because they actually pay attention to politics as opposed to just get caught up in everyone talking about it. But no less, this is a lot. This is Newsom got 33% of the vote.
Yep.
And Cox got 26.
Pretty
which
darn close. For
a Republican in California whose name did not come from Hollywood is a huge number.
Right.
That's absurd. At least in California politics for the past 30 years.
Since Reagan?
Well, I mean, Schwarzenegger. Though he does qualify as came from Hollywood.
He does.
But so did Reagan, though. And so, I mean, it's been a long time, and I have very serious doubts that Cox will win this election. But being as it's one giant primary, that's a lot of spread.
Right.
Right, to have covered for Republicans in California. And as opposed to my normal habits, might actually get me to vote in an off-year election in California. Because, wow, that's close.
Right.
Though, what's interesting is watching the rest of the media talk about this, because they're like, oh, yeah, well, Trump said it was a good year for a good election in California for Republicans, but it really wasn't, because Newsom has this huge lead. And I was like, yeah.
With the way it usually runs in California, not so huge of a lead as we're accustomed to seeing.
Right, like he has a kind of tiny lead.
By comparison.
Like, by almost an order of magnitude.
But that's the whole thing, is unless you're in California, you wouldn't know that.
Oh, you should know that, right? Like, maybe you don't know that every year it's 70+% for the head Democratic candidate. Maybe you don't know that.
Right.
But what you do know is that...
Unless you are in California, I'm saying outside of California, people don't realize that. They don't pay attention to our politics.
Sure they do. At least enough to know that Democrats win by a landslide here. And not like a little tiny landslide, like the landslides that destroy half the state every couple of years.
Right.
That's the quantity that Democrats win by. And they do it every single year. And 26-33 in an open primary is not a landslide.
No.
Now, again, Republicans do better in off-year elections, but even the prior off-year election was something like 50-10 or something like that.
They do better. It doesn't mean that they're not doing well.
Right.
They're doing better than they usually do. They've gone from 10% to 12%.
Well, 26 is a lot.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is they're doing exceptionally well by comparison to how they classically have done.
Mm-hmm. And look, I'm a little disillusioned with the idea that the governor changing to a Republican will help in any way. I watched what happened to Schwarzenegger in this state.
No, it won't, because the plethora of Democrats that are built before him before he gets to sign something put the kibosh on all kinds of shit he might want to do.
Well, there is that, but on the other hand, everything else doesn't seem to be changing all that much. Mm-hmm. And just the power of the veto pen in this state would help a lot, because there are a minority of Republicans who say, no, we need to stop spending. No, we need to stop borrowing. No, we need to stop all this other kind of stupid crap that we do in this state where, we go, well, who's against pure water? So we're going to make a water purity bill that is 99.99999999999% pure. As though there is any functional difference if you looked at that number or that number minus 3 of the 9s at the end.
Right.
Like now we're down to counting atoms. I don't think this is really relevant to the discussion at hand, but it's what happens here. And so, look, that by itself could make a substantial difference of how the state works over the course of, 4 years. On the other hand, again, I watched Schwarzenegger get destroyed by the teachers' unions, so that will happen again.
Right.
The flip side of this, though, is that this is the haven of the resistance, of progressive utopia, of every lefty, socialist, ridiculous policy that can be imagined.
This is where they've coalesced to make sure their agenda gets started.
Right. And being even within reaching distance of the head progressive utopian idiot from San Francisco is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, I don't think we'll actually have to get rid of the DPRC if California elects a Republican governor. But on the other hand, they don't seem to be in any way outright winning any of the blue wave seats either.
Right.
Like, unsurprisingly, it's mostly incumbents that are winning by pretty large margins, because that's how politics works. Right. Oh, I know that name. Okay.
Right.
Or, I've seen that name before. Okay. Right. But on the flip side from that, though, is that if California is not riding a massive blue wave to 100% Democrat victory minus Orange County, then I don't think anybody else is either.
Right.
And there are a few articles that I read about this, a lot of them where they're not polling anybody in any reasonable way, but reporters are going out and talking to people and are being like, so what the hell? And the answer is like, well, I just don't care. I'm tired of all the news. I'm tired of politics. I don't give a shit. And that is coming from, to be fair, everyone. But in California, the resistance, come on now. That's a big deal.
Well, you have to remember, to a degree, they've been fighting for well over a year trying to get their one capstone idea function done, and they've met very little success. Trump's still in office.
Well,
they're feeling discouraged. It's California.
Yes.
Once you're discouraged, you just drop that shit and walk away.
That is the California way. Fair-ish. On the other hand, if if there's no rallying even this crazy people set, like, I don't know if you remember election night, but of 2016, but this was people literally marching like it was the fucking civil rights movement all over again.
Oh, yeah.
Streets paved over with people going, oh, resist Trump's hate, not my president, and all this other.
Oh, I know.
You can't. And look, yes, some of that happened in other places, but it mostly happened here. And if you can't get those people to go, I guess I'll get up and vote and say that we need a progressive douchebag. Who in this country is going to be part of this blue wave?
I don't know. Because, I mean, all their California diehard guys just went, man, it's just too much trouble to lift the pen.
Right. Don't get me wrong. And
they want you to fill in those little bubbles all the way. I can't just put in a check.
Right. Exactly. This is too hard, man. Have you seriously ever tried to color in a circle? Like, dude, no.
I mean, and they want us to keep it in the lines. We've always been taught by parents to be creative, and there are no line references that we need to follow.
Exactly. Where's the non-binary bubble?
This voting ballot is oppressing me.
Exactly. Maybe that will just be the end of the progressivism. But look, regardless, everyone. Look, they went out and talked to a bunch of Republicans who were like, this state is just too much of a lefty shithole. Doesn't matter what I vote. Which is the argument that I make on like a daily basis when it comes to voting.
I know.
So I get that the progressive nut bars are starting to do this. Probably not a good sign for them. Because, look, I personally looked at polling, the primary numbers and went, maybe it's time I end the moratorium on voting. Mm-hmm. And for all of the people who have been disenfranchised in this state for 30, 40 years, mm-hmm. going, wow, that's close.
That's a chance. I mean, honestly, I would encourage all people to get up and vote. Honestly. I think all people should get up and vote.
Definitely no.
No?
No.
After researching what they're going to be voting on?
Well, that's never going to happen, which is why all people should not get up and vote.
Right. I understand that. I would like more people to be active in their environment instead of just sitting on their couch bitching about their environment not being what they want.
Well, I mean, if you're sitting on your couch bitching about how your environment is not what you want it to be, then that speaks volumes to how much you're willing to change it.
Right.
So, look, if you think California is a shit state, then unless you're legally mandated to stay here, which some of us are, then...
What?
Yeah, we'll talk about it later. Then you get up and move, right?
Right. I'm sorry, I never heard that people are forced to be here.
Yeah. There are a lot of ways in which you can be legally mandated to stay in the state that you're in. Or even the county. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do a show on it some other day.
Yeah, I never heard of that before.
So, look, there are some other things of note here, which is to say that somebody went out and looked at registration statistics and said, look, this is still 44% Democrat registration, and the Republicans are moving up a little in how many registrations are going on, but, not very much. The big thing that is taking 2% off of last year's voter registration by party for the Democrats is that the independents are now greater than the size of the Republican Party.
Yep.
Now, I get it. If you grew up in California and you are roughly my age, all you have ever heard is that Republicans hate you, they want to take your money, they literally want to put you in internment camps, kill black people, so on and on and on and on.
Right.
The likelihood that you are going to vote Republican unless you come from, say, Orange County, again, is pretty low, right? Flip side of that, in California, independent is one of two things. I refuse to say the word Republican, or Gavin Newsom is not progressive enough for me.
Right.
Those are really the vast majority of your independents here. And I get it. Oh, but, what about all the people who are in the middle and think, there's very few people like that here. And we are we have lived in a city that is supposed to be the mecca of independent voting in the, like, I'm between the two issues, people are not independent. So, I mean, you are left, more left, or the devil because you said you're a Republican. That's how it is.
Pretty much. That is kind of the way the state runs.
And so, that so many people are on the independent rolls, back to that gubernatorial choice, if it's, I don't like Newsom because I'm any amount to the right of Newsom, then the only other option in binary elections like this is to vote Republican.
Mm-hmm.
Or not vote, to be fair. However, if you're registering independent, which is a little bit of a pain in the ass here in California, they like to give you shit for it, then chances are good you're slightly more politically engaged. So this is not a good sign, right? Either that or, there's going to be a libertarian or green party or something that pops up like that on the last day for a write-in election, but that's not going to happen. So, is this the end of progressive utopia California? No, but it might be the beginning of it.
Yeah, it could be the start of the march.
And how amazing would that be?
I'd be happy to see more level heads taking charge around here.
Yeah, well,
with the whole thing. By the way, our pocketbook is not only empty, the credit cards are about broken. We need to stop spending money.
Nobody cares about that. And I mean,
I do.
Nobody. You, me, my wife. That's pretty much it. I mean, look, again, I'm sure there are some other people, but maybe
they're minority.
I'll go big and say 10% of the state gives a damn.
Right.
The rest of the state's like, man, it's government money.
No, I understand that it's a minority.
So, I mean, we're just going to keep taxing, borrowing, and spending because that's what we do.
Right.
On the other hand, people are leaving the state in droves because of that. So,
and other reasons.
Mostly that.
Yeah.
Mostly money.
Mostly money.
Which is unsurprising. It's economics are good reasons to move, and it's usually at the point that you can't, live here anymore financially that people leave.
Right.
So, on the other hand, though, back to our election results, the difference, and don't get me wrong, primary voter turnout is always crap. Even in on-election years, primary voter turnout is crap. But the actual difference in votes between Newsom and Cox was about 300,000.
Yeah.
Now, when I say 300,000, that sounds like a lot until you realize that only about 3 million people voted, right?
Right.
So, 10% of the electorate difference, right?
Right.
However, all the other names are going away on the actual ballot.
Right.
And that difference is not very much. That's any given county.
Right.
That's ridiculously close.
Yeah. Especially for California. It hasn't been like that in a long time. I mean, what has persuaded California to, maybe betray the Democratic Party?
Well, again, back to the reasons to be independent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So either you are, you have some sympathy for the right, or you think Gavin Newsom isn't progressive enough for you. That's it, right?
Gotcha.
So, and look, when Newsom started to come out as lead candidate for the Democrats, there were a lot of people who were like, he is not progressive enough. What are you doing? So, I mean, articles written, all kinds of stuff.
Oh, I know.
So, it's entirely possible that I'm just misreading this and going, well, look, all the progressives actually didn't come out and vote because they didn't have a progressive enough candidate. And now they're all going to go vote for Newsom because, well, at least I can take some progressives.
Right. Or
maybe this is the chink in the armor. And based on the way that the rest of the results are going, I think maybe this is the chink in the armor. Because if it was, it's time for massively progressive douchebags, there are candidates on other ballots that are massive progressive douchebags. They're not winning.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I hate to have hope in this state, at least politically, but maybe far, far past the horizon, but in the direction that we're halfway heading, there's hope.
Maybe. we'll see. Maybe it could have simply because pot's been legalized around here and they're just too stoned to make it to the voting box.
Hey, maybe that's been the answer all these years. Is we just needed to get everybody high so that only people who don't smoke pot vote.
Yeah, maybe.
And that's the end of our show for the day.
That's right. It's taco time.
However, before we go, we'd appreciate it if you shared us around.
You can find us on YouTube,
BitChute,
Facebook,
Twitter,
Patreon,
and Maker Support.
Thanks for stopping by.